Artificial light for chickens. Does it really increase egg production? It's that time of year. Your chickens laid all spring and summer and have now decided to take a break. You've probably resorted to buying eggs at the store while still paying for chicken feed and going to all that trouble to care for your flock. Will artificial light really help your hens to lay? Chickens naturally go through a molt in the fall, and they don't normally lay during this time. They're putting all their energy into growing a new set of feathers. Molting lasts 1 to 3 months for each bird. There's not much you can do about the break your chickens will take during molting, although you can time it so you get some new pullets each spring that will start laying when the rest of your flock is molting. But once they're finished molting, whether they will lay during winter is primarily dependent on the hours of daylight. So how much light do chickens need? Well, chickens typically slow down or stop laying when the daylight falls below 14 hours a day. Chickens that live near the equator can lay almost year-round, but for most of us, they'll take a break during the winter. For those of us who live in the north, this break can last for half the year. That's where artificial light for chickens comes in. Some chicken keepers argue that chickens need that natural break from laying, but there really isn't much information available, scientifically speaking. It really comes down to your choice as a chicken keeper. Keeping in mind that chickens closer to the equator can lay most of the year naturally, I personally don't think it's harmful to chickens to artificially increase daylight to stimulate their laying. They still do get a break each year during their molt. One thing we do know is that chickens can only lay so many eggs during their lifetime. If production is your goal, and you cull your chickens as they get older, it makes sense to use artificial lighting to get maximum production from your flock. On the other hand, if you plan on keeping your hens for their entire life, you might want to stretch their egg laying out over a longer time frame by letting them take a winter break. One more thing to keep in mind is that if you let your own chickens have a winter break but buy eggs from the store during that time, that means someone else's chickens were still kept under artificial lighting. As I mentioned earlier, I've kept track of how many eggs I collected with and without artificial lighting. Expect the numbers to vary for you, depending on where you're located and what breeds you have. I live in Montana, in the northern United States. I mostly have heritage breeds, and I feed a local soy-free feed. Keeping a hybrid laying breed that's suited to your climate can really increase how many eggs you get. Feeding a soy-based feed designed for maximum production can also increase your hens' production. And finally, keeping your chickens warmer can help. Our temperatures can get to 20 degrees below, and I usually don't heat my coop unless we're expecting prolonged temperatures below zero. With artificial lighting, I get about 1 egg per 6 birds per day. This is after they go through their fall molt during the months of December and January. So from a flock of 30 hens, I would get 4 to 6 eggs a day. This is compared to 24 eggs a day in the spring. How many eggs do I get without lights? Well, for a while I wondered whether it was worth using a light. It didn't seem like I was getting that many eggs in the winter anyway. But then I tried keeping my flock without. With no artificial lighting, my flock lays 1 egg per 30 to 35 birds per day during the months of December and January. Yes, that's 1 single egg. Although I do put up extra eggs in the spring, I still end up buying a lot of eggs in the winter. So I'm feeding my large flock of freeloaders while paying for someone else's eggs from chickens that were kept under lights. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? To set up artificial lighting for your laying flock, you'll need a clear light and a timer. I use a regular heat lamp but put a clear light on it. Red lights will not trick your hens into producing. It has to be a clear or a white bulb. You can find links for these on our website. Shatterproof bulbs are toxic to chickens and should not be used in a chicken coop. To use an artificial light, set the timer on your light to provide additional daylight in the morning or evening. Daylight should total 14 to 16 hours, including what's provided by the sun. So if you are getting 12 hours a day of natural light, you should set up your lamp to provide an additional 2 to 4 hours a day. Make any lighting changes gradually, no more than 1 hour at a time. As the day length begins to increase, you can taper off how long your light is on. For me, it's definitely worth the small cost of running an artificial light for my flock. It's also worth noting that when it comes to heritage breeds, brown egg layers seem to lay much better in the winter time. I have a mix of blue, brown, and white layers, but at this moment all the eggs in my basket on the counter are brown. Buff Orpingtons have been at the top of the list for me. Have you found a breed that lays better in the wintertime? I'd love to hear about it in the comments.